Hello everyone, welcome you all to the TechGig webinar. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's talk is non-functional testing mobile apps. It will be a 1-hour session with around 40 to 45 minutes for the presentation and the remaining time for the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please send them to us using the questions tab on the GoToWebinar control panel. I am Sabha, the moderator of this session, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker, Mr. Nilesh Tarale. Nilesh is Vice President at pCloudy, part of Smart Software Testing Solutions, and has around 15 years of experience in product development and testing. He has worked primarily in the mobile application testing and mobile device testing domain with companies like Motorola, Nokia, Accenture, etc. Nilesh is currently based out of Bangalore. So without any further delay, let's begin the session. Over to you, Nilesh.
Thanks, Sabha, for a quick introduction and opening the session for all of us. Thank you so much. Good afternoon all, and very warm welcome from my side for today's webinar. I've seen the count, it's really good. It's very impressive count for this webinar. I'm really welcoming all. So, as Sabha was mentioning, this is not an interactive session. So, towards the end of the session, you can please feel free to ask the questions or post the questions as Sabha was mentioning, and we will have a separate question and answer session towards the end. Thank you so much. So, without wasting further more time, let's move on to the agenda for today's webinar. So, we'll have a quick introduction about this platform called pCloudy. We'll have an overview on non-functional testing part. We'll see the significance of the non-functional testing for mobile applications. We'll walk you through some of the most popular and critical non-functional types typically used in the mobile application testing, and followed by the live demonstration of some of the NFT use cases using pCloudy platform. So primarily, pCloudy platform is something which we will be demonstrating on some of the non-functional scenarios. So who are we? Actually, pCloudy is one of its kind of platform which is primarily used for testing the mobile applications. pCloudy provides you geographically distributed real mobile devices for both Android and iOS for your testing needs. We have around 500 plus devices to choose from this platform, and in all 7,000 plus test engineers and developers are using this platform on daily basis. The platform is being used by corporate, small, medium companies, and even by the individual test and developer communities for their testing needs. This platform can be used for both manual testing and automation testing. We are even Gartner has featured us for the best tool or the best platform for mobile application testing. We will be seeing some generic discussion about the non-functional testing, how it is done, why it is done, why it is required, and at the end we will be showing you live demo on the pCloudy platform on a couple of non-functional type of testing, how to use it. So let's move on to the core agenda of the webinar. So when we look at the overview of non-functional testing, as we all know, from black box testing perspective, we have two categories for testing, functional and non-functional testing. We are all clear about the functional testing. In a typical test life cycle, we concentrate on functional testing mostly, as functional testing is the most obvious testing we all can think of. So unless the functionality of any product is tested, there is no point even to think about any other testing. And that's the reason typically in most of the cases we ignore non-functional testing. So functional testing is indeed the most important and the primary testing. But there is no fixed definition for non-functional testing as we have for the functional testing. So we are going to get define the non-functional testing. There are a lot of, we can define non-functional testing the way we want. So typically, if we see on the internet also, or in some different methodologies, we'll see anything which you test other than your functional business requirement is typically called non-functional testing. testing the non-functional requirements set by clients to check the quality of the mobile application in terms of performance, speed, etc. is again a non-functional testing. So if you see the entry criteria for the non-functional testing is typically once the successful completion of the functional testing is done. So any testing which we do typically after this period is also called non-functional testing. We will see in our next slides why non-functional testing is important and why we should give preference to non-functional testing. To understand the importance of non-functional testing, you need to ask a few questions to yourself. Why? Your question should start with why. Okay. So the criteria to uninstall the applications, if you really look at it from the mobile application perspective, for every user, it may vary based on their experiences. But if you ask some questions to yourself, you will come closer to the understanding of importance of non-functional testing. We all are working at the end of the day towards a single goal that the application should get installed successfully on the user's device. They should use it so that we generate the revenue or we acquire the clients. That's the ultimate goal. But is it really happening? It is not happening because there are certain questions which we are not asking. There are certain failures which we are not looking at. And those are the things which we usually miss from the non-functional side of mobile application testing. So if you typically look at it, there are a few questions which I have jotted down here. If you keep on asking a few more questions, probably your list may keep on growing. But these are the typical questions typically we should be asking to ourselves. Why our mobile applications are uninstalled by users after they install it? Why mobile applications get bad reviews on the Play Stores or Apple Stores? Why mobile applications are slow at a specific time of the day? Why specific users are not using my mobile applications? Why users use my mobile application only when they are connected to Wi-Fi? So if you really look at it, there are a lot of questions which, if we ask ourselves why, we'll start narrowing down to the root cause of the particular issue, and we'll come to the conclusion that this is because we have not looked at the non-functional part of the application testing. So there are certain statistics which I wanted to present it here. The recent study, there are a lot of statistics available. There are a lot of studies done by the market researchers in the market, which you can always go and read it. But some of the key things which we have jotted down here is like, in a recent study shows that the phone users in the US, typically if you're talking about US or even in India, the numbers are pretty much the same. We spend close to around 86% of mobile usage time only on the apps. And the other study actually calculated this figure to be as high as 89%. And talking to this further, it has also been found that the mobile users spend close to around 80% of their mobile app usage using just 5 applications out of maybe 24 applications or so what they are doing it. So if you really look at this slide here, which says, from the very first month after the installation of the application, around only 42% users are returning their application and 58% users are uninstalling their application. And if you keep on going to month 2 and month 3, the statistic shows the uninstallation percentage goes pretty high, from 58% to 71% to 75%. So where are we heading to when we have really created the application which is really solving the pain point for which we have written it? Clients are ready, they are getting impressed, they are installing it, but why they are uninstalling it then? So if you really look at it, there are certain aspects which we have come up across, we have seen in the market. So some of them I've tried to jot it down here is like bad usability. So usability is one of the primary concerns most of the users have. high memory consumption. If your application is consuming too much of memory, then it's a definite concern to the users. High data consumption, because there is a cost associated with that, and in turn, high data consumption may affect the battery consumption of the device. Security threats. If you're a financial company or some other company, yes, there are so many threats to that. High battery consumption, of course, and lots of crashes. Yeah. So these are the primary things which we have seen most of the users are concerned about when they are actually installing the applications on their devices and trying to use it. One more study which we have seen, on average, around 2,000 applications has been launched on a daily basis, resulting in very heavy traffic on the App Store. Okay, such a wide number of apps are getting developed and being introduced each day has brought the users into perplexed trauma. What needs to be done? Whether it is an iOS application or it's an Android application, user is definitely getting confused which are all apps he should be installing on his devices, because they always have limited storage of space. It's primarily because for a user to get each and every app downloaded on his device is practically not possible because of the memory constraints. So having such a great number of apps is though less shocking than the rate of getting them uninstalled by the users. If you really look at the graph which we have shown you here, we are really concerned, because even if you have good app, even if you have an app which is really solving the pain point of some user, you're not getting the retention of the user. Mostly the interesting and attractive looking apps are getting downloaded, but it's a fact that nearly, as we have said, 58% is getting uninstalled, 71% after 2 years, and 75% after 3 years. So we'll have to see why this is happening. We have seen certain parameters here that this could be few of the reasons that users are uninstalling the application. Now, based on, as I said earlier, based on the user needs, based on the type of user, and based on the application which is using, there might be certain more parameters to which they are considering and probably uninstalling the applications. So in a way, yes, we need non-functional testing, because all these parameters which we have listed here can be tested thoroughly using the non-functional testing. So we'll just quickly see what all different types of non-functional testings are. Okay, so I have written some of the very popular non-functional testing types here, like installation testing, interrupt testing, portability testing, usability testing, scalability, load testing, stress testing, performance testing, security testing, volume testing, failover testing, compatibility, and endurance testing, and the list can keep on going based on, there are a lot of different factors to which we can gather and you can start testing it. Now, it is very obvious that we cannot keep on testing for the non-functional types also for our application in all the possible scenarios which I have listed here, or which you can even further come up with. So there has to be a finite set of testing types in the non-functional testing which is required for your mobile application. So at this moment, it is very difficult for anyone to say what are all non-functional testing I'll have to do it on my mobile application testing, mobile application. It all depends on what kind of mobile application you have. A lot depends on what kind of functionality you have provided to your application, mobile application. Let's say you have a standalone application, mobile application on your device, which is not interacting with the internet, which is not probably having a server. It's just a standalone application. So we don't probably need to do the network compatibility testing. We don't have to do the data usage pattern. And if your application is a client-server application, then indeed we have to test all these parameters which I have told. You also have to look from the security point of view. So based on the type of mobile application, you have to decide what all kind of testings are required and what are all testings we can do it. But typically, yes, there are a lot of variations, a lot of types available in the non-functional testing. So what we will do is we'll try to gather some of the key non-functional testing types which is mostly used in the mobile application testing, and we'll try to go through each different type of non-functional testing with a quick brief about that, and then we'll move on to the demo part. So some of the key non-functional testings typically we use for the mobile application are listed here. So, but as I said, it depends all on your type of mobile application. So typically we have installation and update testing, which is very much required for the mobile applications. Interrupt testing, because the same device will be used for several other functions. So there will be a lot of interrupts generated by the system and by the external application. So we'll have to mandatorily do the interrupt testing. Portability testing is very much needed because of the big fragmented landscape we have for iOS platform, and slowly even for the iOS we are having a lot of variations. So portability testing is indeed pretty much needed for mobile application testing. Usability testing, as I have pointed out very much in the beginning, this usability is the primary cause of uninstallation. So usability testing is pretty much needed. Performance testing, yes, performance testing is also very important, but if you really look at the performance testing, there are a lot of variations in the performance testing, a lot of factors to be considered. For some clients or for some of the test engineers, the speed at which the application is behaving is treated as performance. For some, load is treated as performance. For some, stress is treated as performance. So there are a lot of variations in the performance testing. And the last is the security testing. So again, as I said, depending on the kind of application you have, security testing is also very important. So coming to installation and update testing, see, the goal of installation testing is to make sure that the software is installed and working as expected after installation. So installation testing is specific to distributed software that end users must install on their mobile devices. It focuses on what customers need to in order to successfully install or uninstall the application. Also, we have to test how the software updates work, how updates are pushed to the mobile, and how your application behaves when an update is updated automatically. We have seen at times that the application is really working fine, and after getting the update, either the update is not getting applied to the piece of software, or the mobile application starts behaving weirdly. Okay, so all these things we have to test. Installation testing is pretty much needed, looking at the big landscape which we have, the plethora of devices which we have for Android. So yes, installation and update testing is pretty much needed. Interrupt testing, we'll understand what interrupt testing is. We need to verify how your application behaves when it is disturbed by an interrupt. Okay, does the end user get smooth experience throughout the use of his life cycle? When you get an interrupt while doing your testing or while using your application, how your application behaves. Ideally, in case of an interruption, the application that is interrupted should enter into a suspend state, and restart as soon as the interruption ends. But before we get into that, let's start by understanding what goes wrong with an interruption. What can happen? or what is the use case when an interruption happens. So to give an example, let's say you are in a some music concert. You are listening or you are watching the live music concert of your favorite singer, and while enjoying that music, you also want to record that video for your future consumption. Yeah. So you started the recording of your concert on your mobile through mobile recorder, video recorder, and suddenly the screen gets locked. Now, if that is the case, what ideally we are expecting is ideally the screen should not get locked when the application is running. But if it gets locked, your application will stop behaving, right? And that's pretty irritating, because you are not expected that screen should get locked. So this kind of interrupt should not come. So we'll have to test that, whether this kind of interrupts are coming. And if the interrupts which are allowed, let's say you are recording in the same scenario, you are recording a video and you get a voice call, or you get a SMS, or you get a WhatsApp notification. In that case, how your application should behave. If you get a WhatsApp notification, you should not, the video should not stop. It should start recording. If you are getting a SMS alert, probably you will just get notification with, in terms of a sound beep or something like that, but you are, for a fraction of a second, probably the recording will pause and it will start resuming back. If you get an incoming call, then of course the recorder should stop, or rather it should get suspended, and then it should again resume once you disconnect the call or you are done with the call. So this kind of testing has to be done. This is typically what we are calling interrupt testing, and based on the interrupts, the what do we call? Based on the priority of the interrupts, you have to your application will start behaving differently, as I have explained. Okay, so some of the very key interrupts in mobile which we observe is like incoming notification for SMS or call, as I just explained. For battery charger, so you may probably plugging in the charger, you may plugging out the charger. That kind of interrupts are also should be handled. Removal of memory card, because even now most of the phones have hot swapping, so you can remove your SIM card quickly, sorry, not SIM card, the memory card, and that particular interrupt should be handled by your application. Network outage and recovery. If at all you are using any application which is using the network data, switching off and on the media players and other connecting devices, low memory warnings, device power cycles. So these are some of the key interrupts which we expect to be tested by the test engineers on their for their mobile applications. If we come to portability testing, again, this is very important testing. What we are primarily checking here is if the mobile application is installed on multiple environment with different hardware and software configurations, typically the bigger landscape of Android devices which I am talking about, which has different hardware and software specifications. The whole purpose is to check whether the application is able to run and can be installed in different applicable environment. In order to satisfy the business needs of the customer. That's the primary concern. If we are deploying any application, if we are installing any application, we need to check if it is working fine in that particular environment with different hardware configuration. Such as, I mean, if you really look at it, even if you take, for example, you take a Samsung phone, there are a lot of variations. You see Samsung, let's say S6, S7, S7H, S8, S8H. So all these different variations have different kind of RAMs, different kind of hard disk space, different processors. So we have to make sure that our mobile application is indeed portable on all these variations there. we also have to consider or taken into consideration the different resolutions, such as we have 1280 by 1023 or 1024 by 786 pixels and so on. I mean, if you see the smallest one like 640 into 480 pixels resolution. So we have to make sure that our application does work the way it is designed on different screen resolutions also. We'll have to see, the application needs to be tested on different browsers. So if you are using a web apps, then you'll have to make sure that your application does support on different browsers, because mobile applications we have, for mobile platforms, we have a whole lot of browsers available in the market. So we'll have to make sure that, your web app indeed works for all such kind of browsers. Generally, the defects which occur during the portability testing does not come out in normal course of testing, like when we are doing unit testing or integration testing, module level testing, and even the system integration testing. So if you just do a normal functional testing also, you may be probably doing it on the emulator or on some of the physical devices which we have. So it may probably work for that particular device on which you are testing, but not necessarily you will be able to find the defect which you may find while doing portability testing on multiple devices. So there are some defects which come out during only portability testing, and that needs to be fixed in order to ensure that the application is highly portable and can be installed in multiple environments and does not show any failure when installed in different environments, like on different devices. So coming to usability testing, if we see certain research in the market, we have seen that usability is the key for the success of mobile applications. In fact, a common trend among successful mobile phone applications is that they're perceived by users, as being easy to learn, user-friendly, and less time-consuming when completing certain tasks. So when I'm using my application, what is my learning curve? How long it takes for me to understand the application and to make me familiar with the application to get used completely. Okay, what is the time it is taking or consuming when I'm actually moving from one screen to another screen? If it is, and in today's world, when we don't have any patience, all the users are expecting that when I touch on something or I do certain operations on my mobile application, I must see the results very next moment. So these are certain complex things, or these are certain things which we have to look from the usability testing perspective. See, there is few more research which is done there, and they have said, some of them have identified there is a direct link between mobile application usability and the user acceptance. So if you don't have good usability of your mobile application, you will see very few user acceptance from the users for that particular application. So despite the importance of mobile application usability, we are seeing a lot of lack in the agreed upon guidelines or whatever we have. There is a lot of lack in that. The best way to evaluate the usability of mobile application is through usability testing. So UX team is there, they are coming up with certain things, but what happened at the end of the day? UX team might be saying, we have, let's say, one input form where somebody is entering certain data and then he has to enter that data, right? That's a simple use case. Now, UX team will definitely come up with a nice form with all the required fields, with nice icons, with nice colors and everything. But when the code is generated, when the application is created, and when you start testing it, you may probably see that yes, on tablet, maybe 7-inch tablet, if you see, yes, everything is coming very nice. The buttons for cancel, submit, or different buttons, they are good in size, which you can click nicely, you can probably select the radio buttons if it is very close to each other for certain fields. But the same application, when we are using it on maybe a 5.5-inch device or 4.5-inch device, probably everything is getting scrambled together. The user can see the radio buttons, the form fields, the buttons to submit, but he is not able to enter the text properly there, because when he try to choose the specific field, the event is not going to that particular field. It is because two fields are pretty close, or he is not able to choose the radio button because the radio buttons are displayed very close to that. So this is what is very much important. At the same time, we also have to see if the because when we write any application, we typically keep certain parameters in our mind. And this particular application, mobile applications, are targeting maybe a group of teenagers, or this particular application is targeted for people aged 25 to 35. So we will have to see if, based on the different age, race, geography, we have to see the users and do the usability from their perspective. So when you are doing the test, keeping all these things in my mind, in your lab, it will be a big challenge, because we may not be able to think from the user's perspective exactly. So the best way for the usability testing is, of course, you have to do it in your lab, but at the same time, we have to keep ourselves open to get usability testing done by the real users. There are certain tools available in the market, and crowd testing is one of the good platform for getting the usability testing done. So because there you can specifically target, let's say you're writing an application for India, and the target group is 18 to 20 years age group people. You can always crowdsource your testing to any crowd testing platform and tell them that India is my location and this is my criteria. So people will, the real testers from that criteria, from that region, will start testing your application, and you will get the real feedback from the user. And that is pretty much important when you are releasing the application, and looking usability is the key. Performance testing, as I said, it all depends, and it's been subjective, as there are a lot of variations in the performance testing. So some people are really talking about the stress testing, some people are talking about the load testing, some people are talking about the responsiveness. So the list keeps on going, right? But we have looked at it, and we have been in this industry for so long, and so many customers are using our platform. We realize that most of the time for any mobile application, be it standalone application or client server application, there are some issues which are faced by these clients, and they are asking us, and that's when we have come up with this thing. So primarily 3 or 4 things which we have to observe when you are doing your testing. One is the CPU consumption. So in this performance testing criteria, what I'll be showcasing it today, or what I'm talking today here, is we'll be concentrating more on this particular 4 parameters, which is CPU consumption, memory consumption, battery consumption, and data consumption. All right. So CPU consumption, yes, when we are testing your application, or when the user is using your application, we as a tester, we don't know, because the entire mobile application is a black box for us when you are doing functional or non-functional testing. So we'll have to still make sure that the CPU consumption is not beyond certain limit when you are doing your testing, because the more the CPU consumption, you are actually consuming a lot of battery. Okay, memory consumption. If there are a lot of memory, huge memory consumption by the application, we are slowing down the user's phone, and definitely no user will like the slowness of their phone, because we are pretty impatient, right? Battery consumption, as I said, battery is the vital key today. Without mobile device, battery is something which is very key. We'll have to make sure that the applications which we are testing or which we are releasing is consuming reasonable battery. It should not be very high, because we have seen in the past this is a most important, most vital factor. The moment any application is consuming a lot of battery, this is the application which will get uninstalled on the priority, right? And data consumption, yes. So data consumption is again pretty much important for a simple reason. There is a cost associated with that. So nobody wants to shell their money for using an application which is probably not worth spending that much money, because we have seen in some of the cases, even if the application is in the background, there is a whole lot of messages keep on happening between the client and server. Whole lot of data is being consumed, and typically the clients and users, if you are talking about the India, people are not liking that. So these are certain things which we have to definitely test when you are testing your mobile applications. Yeah, so with this we have almost covered, in the interest of time, the non-functional test types what we have here. I will be trying to show you some of the test types on pCloudy, how to test your applications on pCloudy so that you can get some of the key vitals. Maybe we can start with the performance testing, or we can probably start with the installation testing. So I'll just quickly go to the, this is the platform which I'm talking about, pCloudy, and I'm just logging into the pCloudy. So we do have offering wherein you can connect to a crowdsourcing test community, the real users, through something called certifier. So what you are seeing right now is a dashboard on which you are already seen for one of the applications which I have executed this particular result. So if you really look at it, we have run this particular test on 5 different devices, and for 5 different devices I am getting the ratings here from out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. What is the CPU rating, what is the memory rating, what is the battery rating, and network rating. So this kind of data you will be getting if at all you are using this certifier from pCloudy. So certifier is something which will connect you to the real users in the world. You can choose the age group, you can choose the geographies from where real users will be testing your application. But even if you don't want to do that, if you just want to concentrate on your installation testing, you can probably just click on here and choose the application which you want and give the session name. After that, you have to just say run, and once you say run, okay, on the selected devices, the application will start getting installed, and you will get similar kind of results which we have shown you here, in which you will start seeing it whether the application is installed on that particular devices or not. So in one single shot, you can probably connect to 100 devices, 50 devices, or whatever list of devices which you have. And if I just go to full report here, you will start seeing this kind of report where you can go to different categories here. So if you just come to the crash test, for each device it will show you what was the performance, and such kind of information we will be providing for battery charge. So for whatever application you have submitted, we will do there are certain bots which will do the testing for you on behalf of you, and it will give you the results in terms of the battery consumption, in terms of memory. You will get both value consumption, and you will get the network chart based on the application which you are testing. and in case you're taking certain screenshots, I mean, the bots will take automatically some screenshots, and those screenshots will also be available to you to consume and understand where the problem is. There are some exploratory bots. So it will do some exploratory testing on the application which you have submitted. So based on the bot which we have written, it will do certain exploratory testing and will give you the results again in the same format which we have just seen. So these are all automated way, and you don't have to write any automation for this. So this is something you just need to push a application which is under test, and the rest will be done by certifier or certify as bot, or if you are selecting the real users, then it will be done by the real users. Okay, so this is all about the installation, because here at one chart you can select multiple devices, and then you can actually get the results with the installation crash part, and also you are getting the as we have seen in the summary, you are getting the total CPU, memory, battery, and network details. But when you are doing a manual testing, typically if I go to devices, when you are doing a manual testing, typically that time, as I said in the presentation very much in the beginning, that you can actually do the non-functional testing only when you are done with your functional testing, right? But the performance testing which I was talking about, wherein we are considering the CPU, memory, battery, or data consumption, that kind of testing is possible on this platform even while you're doing your functional testing. So I would like to demonstrate that. So let's say I connect to Motorola M, this phone, and you are connected to the real device. This is a real device which you are seeing it here. Now once you connect to the real device, you can install the application which is under test. So I'll just demonstrate quickly how to install the application. So I'm just installing the application. I'm selecting an application called Zomato. This is the application for Restaurant Finder application. All these applications which are under test, I have already uploaded to my cloud drive so that I can install it directly from there. So once the application is installed, the platform will open that application for you on the real device, which you will be seeing it here. Yeah, so launch is complete, application is launched, and it is asking me to allow the device location. So I'm just allowing that by clicking allow button using my mouse. Now the application is launched. It's on the very first screen after the location is selected. Now let's assume that you are doing a normal functional testing. So when you are doing a normal functional testing, we have a capability to show you the CPU, memory, and battery consumption data while you are doing a normal functional testing. So you just need to go to Performance tab on the top right side here and choose an app. So you have to just click this button, and we will show you all the applications which you have installed. So you just choose the application for which you want to see the CPU and memory consumption data, and select. Once you select that, you can observe on the right hand side here, you will start seeing the memory consumption. So right now it is like it has gone to 91 MB and it has fallen down to 87 MB. Memory has been consumed by Zomato application and on this particular screen. If you see the CPU consumption has gone to 11%, fall to 10%, then again there was a small spike, 7976. So all this thing can be tested or monitored while you are doing testing. Below that, we will show you the battery capacity or battery consumption. So here this blue line typically indicates the battery consumption by the device. There will be two more lines here, which is a red color line, which will display you the battery consumption by the application. So Zomato application, whatever it is consuming the battery, you can see it from here, and also the percentage at which the battery and application is consumed. Below that, we are also showing frame rendering count, but that is not typically used. I mean, yes, it is also a part of performance testing, because you just want to see at what refresh rate my screen is getting refreshed. So all this information you can get it from here. Along with this, we are also showing you the data usage. So till this point, when my application is really not doing anything, it has still consumed my 4.8 KB of data upload and 7.6 KB of download data. Now, if I just click on the skip button, since this is a location-aware app, and since this device is present in our data center, which is in Electronic City, you will start seeing the results about that particular thing. Yeah. So if such kind of applications where you have location-aware apps, we have feature where we show you the entire Google map and you can see, you can simulate any location. So I'm just selecting some location from London here. Now my application is teleported to that particular location. Yeah. So once I change that, you see there is a lot of changes which are happening here. And if you can also see that when I actually push my application to the background, how it is behaving. So you can probably see the memory is getting little, yeah. So for this particular device, the memory management is done in a good sense because the memory is falling down. That should be the ideal case. The CPU consumption should also fall down because memory is in the background and it's not really consuming much more thing. Okay, but at certain the same application, if you test it on different phones, you will probably see, because we have seen in the past wherein the CPU consumption increases from 8% to 16% or 8% to 10% when the application is in background. So all this data you can monitor while you are doing your functional testing. So while you are doing your functional testing, we are showing you the data usage pattern, the memory consumption, the CPU consumption, and the battery consumption. Since the battery consumption on Motorola is very less for this application, you are not able to see this because it's on this axis. You can probably see now it is showing, but it's very, as compared to this, it's very, very small. It's like 0.01094 milliampere hour. That's why you're not able to see it here. But then the way we have changed the screens, you are seeing the frame rendering count here. Okay, so that's all I have to present from my side here, Sabha. Thank you so much all for your patience here and going through the webinar. I think we are good to go ahead with the question and answer session.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for such an insightful presentation. You may take up the questions now. They are displaying in the question panel.
Okay. Yeah. So let me just quickly read questions and I'll start answering those questions. Yeah. So I have one question from Mr. Zayaullah. He's asking, do we use the same metrics for performance testing for mobile applications like any other web-based application? So it is not the same metrics which we have, because the web applications will typically run on the desktops or laptops where we do not have the constrained environment as we have for the mobile. So the performance criteria will be a little different. Even if you really look at it, if you're opening the Rediff.com on desktop and seeing Rediff.com on mobile, the web pages are also a little different. When we open it for mobile, it will be like m.rediff.com. So basically, the environment, the constrained environment we have for any handheld devices, so our performance criteria will also change based on that. I hope I have answered this question. We have one more question. Mr. George, the question is, do all this testing is applicable for a jailbroken device? So ideally, no. There are instances wherein typically if you see iOS devices, because you're talking about jailbreaking, so primarily I believe you're asking about the iOS device. So Apple, as per Apple, any jailbroken device is not treated as the original device, or it's a offense if we do the jailbreaking of the device. That's what the latest news of Apple says. So You can very well do this, but then a lot of applications when you are testing with the jailbreaking device or jailbroken device, the applications does not get installed in the first place, or it does not work properly. Next question by Mr. Murli. What is the difference between performance testing and load testing? So, as I said, load testing, stress testing, response testing, these are all falls under the performance testing. So, performance testing is an umbrella under which load testing is getting covered, stress testing is getting covered, endurance testing is getting covered. So, as I said, performance is an umbrella for all such kind of tests. Okay, one more question by Murli: how to install iOS 10 to the iPhone series, which is capable of having only maximum Android version of 7.1. I think I didn't get the question because you are writing for both iOS and Android here. I think you can rewrite your question and probably I'll try to answer that question. So there's a question by Rajagonda. He says, what are the examples of interruptions? So I believe I have already gone through the different interruptions with an elaborative examples on interruptions, what all things we have. But if you just missed by any chance, as I said, like there are a lot of interruptions which you can think of from the system side, from the application side, from the network side. So to begin with, mostly the incoming notifications for SMS or call. There may be WhatsApp interrupt when you get a notification from WhatsApp message. There might be a battery charger notifications when you plug in or plug out the charger. There might be a network outage. When suddenly you fall out of the network, you will get a notification on the taskbar saying you don't have the network, or suddenly you will come into the network, so your network will change from GSM to 4G or 3G. So that kind of interrupts are the interrupts which we are talking about when we are talking about the interrupt testings. Similarly, I mean, of course, device low memory. That's one of the things which we have seen recently, that people are concerned about that. So at low memory things, your application will stop working because it doesn't get the required amount of memory. There is a question by Basu Patil. Is asking how to check application battery and data consumption in iOS and Android applications. So it all depends how you are testing it, where you are testing it, and how many devices you are testing it. If you are having a standalone system, you are having one single device with you, you can very well connect that device to your Android Studio or Eclipse or Xcode if you are using iOS device. And when you are doing a normal application testing, you can extract the data from this SDKs to see what kind of battery or data consumption is being used. Typically, I'm not very sure whether you get the data consumption there, but yes, battery consumption, CPU consumption, memory consumption, such kind of parameters you may get it from there. And if you don't want to do all that things and you want to use a ready-made platform which will provide or facilitate this particular functionality, then you can always use pCloudy.com. I have just shown you some time back how to use a normal device with normal mobile application and get the required parameters. So there is a question by Preeti saying, is Certifier similar to Perfecto or expiry test? So it is not exactly the same, but yes, it is in the similar lines. But we have gone a step ahead of those and said, we are even connecting you to the real users through crowdsource platforms. So we do have tight collaboration with certain crowdsource test companies. We have our own real users and you can actually use our platform to go and get your usability testing done by real users. But at the same time, the amount of data which we are showing even for the bots, because we do have bots who will be doing testing on behalf of you. So it is in the similar lines, but it is far different than that. One question by Mr. Pushpak. If I need to run some custom tests using automation, how would I do that? So it's a very vague question for me to understand. We'll have to understand what kind of testing you are targeting to, where, on which devices you want to do it, what kind of test framework you are using to test it. Yeah, it all depends on that. But yes, it is pretty much possible to have your custom tests for the automation, and you can run it. So if you are using, let's say, APM as a test framework, you can actually run, you can create your APM test suites, and you can run it on pCloudy also. So we are running short of time. We have time till 4 o'clock. We have still 4 minutes, and there are a lot of questions. I'm not very sure whether I'll be able to touch upon each and every question, but I'll make sure that I will reach to each one of you individually, and will try to answer your questions. So I still have 2 more minutes, so 4 more minutes, so probably I can take 1 or 2 more questions, and let's see how. One question by Ruchika. Do we need to create an account on pCloudy to see the devices? Yes, of course, you have to register yourself, create an account, and you get a free evaluation for some time. You can use that free evaluation to test your mobile applications on some of the mobile devices, and you can also get the CPU memory data what I have shown, and if you like, then probably you'll have to buy the subscription. Jishu Sharma has asked me a question. Where are these real or actual devices located? How are they always ready for the user of pCloudy to run a test? Do you also provide an option to test on device simulators? So all these devices are present in the state-of-the-art data centers which we have in 3 different locations: India, US, and Philippines. These are all real devices, 24/7 connected to our platforms, and you can practically access this from anywhere in the world, 24/7, provided the device is free. I mean to say, no other user is using that. And you can use it for your manual testing or test automation. You can run your tests also on that. We do not provide simulators, and we are not in favor of using simulators, because simulators, you can typically use it when you are developing your application, or very much in the beginning of your application development phase, where you are just checking the functionality. But when it comes to overall stability, overall testing, we do not recommend anyone to test it on simulator, because your ultimate application is not going to run on the simulators. The users will be using it on real devices, and we have seen with the real devices the application behaves differently because of the law of constraints which we have because of the software hardware configurations. So we do not support simulators. We do have real devices. I'll be taking one more last question now, and after that probably I'll hand it over to Saba, and I'm pretty sure I'll be able to answer all the questions in person. I'll have the list of questions with me, and I will answer these questions in one-on-one to all. I have one question, the last question. Can we use pCloudy for BlackBerry Apps? Question by Saranya. I'm sorry, we have support only for the Android and iOS platform as of now, so BlackBerry Apps are not supported. But you can use it for Android and iOS platforms if you are testing such kind of applications. So that's it from my end, and thank you so much for your presence. I will definitely make sure to answer all your questions by writing it to you directly. Thank you all. Saba, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for this really empowering and motivating session today. I would also like to thank all our participants for making this webinar a great success. This session has been recorded and the recording will soon be available on techgeek.com. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.